The story of the Anunnaki is not just a tale of ancient gods and forgotten civilizations. It is a saga of cosmic intrigue, divine ambition, and the origins of humanity itself. This is a story that begins not on Earth, but on a distant planet called Nibiru, a world caught in a perpetual struggle for survival. Its inhabitants, the Anunnaki, were a race of beings far advanced in technology and wisdom. But their planet was dying. The atmosphere was thinning, and without a solution, their civilization faced extinction. But their scientists, led by the brilliant and resourceful Enki, discovered a potential solution: gold. Gold, when refined into monatomic particles, could be suspended in Nibiru's atmosphere to reflect sunlight and stabilize the climate. Therefore, the Anunnaki launched a mission to Earth, a planet rich in this precious resource, to mine the gold needed to save their world. When the Anunnaki first arrived on Earth, they found a pristine and untamed world. The air was thick with life, the rivers teemed with fish, and the forests stretched endlessly. But this was no paradise for them. It was a harsh and unfamiliar environment. The work of mining gold was grueling, and the Anunnaki, though powerful, were not prepared for the toll it would take on their bodies and spirits. Enki, the chief scientist and son of the Anunnaki king Anu, took charge of the operation. He was a visionary, a thinker who believed in the potential of this new world. But his half-brother, Enlil, the stern and disciplined commander of the mission, saw Earth only as a resource to be exploited. Their conflicting philosophies would set the stage for a rivalry that would shape the destiny of both gods and humans. The Anunnaki toiled in the mines for thousands of years, their frustration growing with each passing century. The work was endless, and the gold they sent back to Nibiru was never enough. Therefore, Enki proposed a radical solution: to create a new worker, a being capable of performing the labor that the Anunnaki themselves could no longer endure. This being would be a hybrid, a blend of Anunnaki DNA and the primitive hominids that roamed the earth. Enki's plan was met with resistance, especially from Enlil, who saw it as an affront to the natural order. But Enki was undeterred. With the help of his sister, Ninhursag, the chief medical officer, he embarked on a series of genetic experiments. They combined Anunnaki DNA with that of the hominids, creating a new species, Homo sapiens, the first humans. The first humans were strong and resilient, capable of performing the arduous tasks required in the mines. But they were also intelligent and curious, traits inherited from their Anunnaki creators. Enki, fascinated by his creation, took a special interest in them, teaching them the basics of agriculture, tool-making, and even rudimentary forms of writing. Therefore, humanity began to flourish, not just as workers, but as a species with potential. Enlil, however, viewed this development with suspicion. He saw the humans as little more than tools, and Enki's affection for them as a dangerous distraction. But Enki believed that humanity could be more than just laborers. They could be partners, even equals. This fundamental disagreement between the two brothers would lead to a series of conflicts that would reverberate through the ages. As the human population grew, so did their influence on the earth. They built cities, cultivated the land, and began to develop their own cultures and societies. But their rapid expansion alarmed Enlil, who saw them as a threat to the natural order. He argued that humanity had become too numerous, too powerful, and too independent. He proposed a drastic solution: to wipe them out with a great flood, a natural disaster that would cleanse the earth and restore balance. Enki, however, could not bear to see his creation destroyed, but he was bound by the laws of the Anunnaki Council, which had voted in favor of Enlil's plan. Therefore, he devised a way to save a small group of humans. He instructed a man named Ziusudra, later known as Noah, to build a massive ark and gather pairs of animals to preserve the biodiversity of the earth. When the floodwaters came, Ziusudra and his family survived, along with the animals they had saved. The flood was a turning point in the relationship between the Anunnaki and humanity. Enlil, seeing the resilience and determination of the survivors, began to reconsider his stance. But the damage had been done. The trust between the gods and their creation had been shattered. Humanity would never again see the Anunnaki as benevolent protectors. In the aftermath of the flood, the Anunnaki decided to take a more hands-off approach to governing humanity. But they still sought to guide and influence their creation from afar. They established a system of kingship, appointing chosen individuals to rule over the human population. These kings were often hybrids, offspring of Anunnaki and human unions, gifted with extraordinary abilities and wisdom. One of the most famous of these kings was Gilgamesh, a demigod who ruled the city of Uruk. Gilgamesh was a mighty warrior and a wise ruler, but he was also plagued by a deep existential fear, the fear of death. Therefore, he embarked on a quest to find the secret of immortality, a journey that would take him to the far corners of the earth and bring him face to face with the gods themselves. Gilgamesh's story is a testament to the enduring human desire for meaning and transcendence, but it also highlights the limitations imposed by the Anunnaki, who guarded the secrets of eternal life jealously. In the end, Gilgamesh learned that immortality was not to be found in the physical realm, but in the legacy one leaves behind. As humanity continued to evolve, so did the tensions among the Anunnaki. The rivalry between Enki and Enlil escalated into open conflict, with each brother vying for control over the earth and its inhabitants. But their struggle was not just a personal feud, it was a battle for the future of both gods and humans. Enki, ever the innovator, sought to empower humanity, giving them the tools and knowledge to become self-sufficient. But Enlil believed that such empowerment would lead to chaos and rebellion. Therefore, he sought to maintain strict control over humanity, using fear and punishment to keep them in line. The conflict came to a head in a series of devastating wars, fought with weapons of unimaginable power. Cities were reduced to rubble, and the earth itself trembled under the fury of the gods. But in the end, it was not the gods who decided the outcome. It was humanity. The humans, tired of being pawns in a divine game, rose up and demanded their freedom. The Anunnaki, realizing that they could no longer control humanity, began to withdraw from the earth. But their influence did not disappear entirely. They left behind a legacy of knowledge, encoded in myths, legends, and ancient texts. The stories of the Anunnaki became the foundation of human religion and culture, shaping the way we understand our place in the universe. Enki, the god of wisdom, became a symbol of enlightenment and progress. His teachings inspired generations of thinkers, scientists, and philosophers. But Enlil, the god of order, left a more ambiguous legacy. His strict adherence to rules and hierarchy influenced the development of law and governance. But it also served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of authoritarianism. The Anunnaki may have left the earth, but their story is far from over. The mysteries they left behind continue to captivate our imagination, driving us to explore the secrets of the cosmos and our own origins. Therefore, the tale of the Anunnaki is not just a story of the past, it is a story of the future, a reminder that the quest for knowledge and understanding is never-ending. As we delve deeper into the mysteries of the Anunnaki, we begin to see patterns and connections that transcend time and space. The stories of Enki, Enlil, and the other gods are not just myths. They are echoes of a deeper truth, a truth that lies at the heart of our existence. The Anunnaki were not just gods. They were teachers, guides, and sometimes even adversaries. But their ultimate gift to humanity was the spark of curiosity, the desire to seek out the unknown and to push the boundaries of what is possible. Therefore, their story is our story, a tale of struggle, discovery, and the eternal quest for meaning. As we stand on the threshold of a new era, the lessons of the Anunnaki are more relevant than ever. They remind us that we are not alone in the universe, that we are part of a larger cosmic drama. But they also remind us that the power to shape our destiny lies within us, in the choices we make and the knowledge we seek. The story of the Anunnaki is a story of gods and humans, of creation and destruction, of order and chaos. But above all, it is a story of hope. a hope that no matter how far we journey into the unknown, we will always find our way home. Many scholars and researchers, including Zecharia Sitchin, have drawn parallels between the Anunnaki and the divine beings described in these ancient texts. According to Sitchin's interpretations of Sumerian tablets, the Anunnaki were not mere mythological deities, but advanced beings who came from the planet Nibiru and played a direct role in shaping early human civilization. He argued that the biblical tale of the Great Flood mirrors the Sumerian accounts of Enlil's wrath and Enki's defiance, reinforcing the idea that these stories share a common origin. Sitchin and other researchers have pointed out striking similarities between the Sumerian creation myths and later religious traditions. The concept of divine beings descending from the heavens, granting knowledge, and influencing human development appears across multiple cultures, from the Nephilim in the Hebrew Bible to the gods of ancient Egypt and Mesoamerica. Could these accounts be distorted retellings of real events involving extraterrestrial visitors? Moreover, some interpretations suggest that the rivalry between Enki and Enlil represents a deeper struggle, one between enlightenment and control, compassion and order. Enki, often depicted as humanity's benefactor, sought to elevate mortals with wisdom and technology, while Enlil, the stern ruler, viewed them as a disruptive force that needed to be contained or even eradicated. These ancient narratives continue to fuel debate among historians, theologians, and alternative researchers. Were the Anunnaki celestial overseers guiding humanity's progress, or were they merely mythological constructs reflecting the fears and aspirations of early civilizations? The truth remains elusive, but one thing is certain: the legends of Enki, Enlil, and the Anunnaki endure, inviting us to question our origins and the forces that may have shaped our destiny. Here are some key connections and interpretations: the Nephilim in the Bible and the Anunnaki. The book of Genesis in the Bible introduces the Nephilim, a race of giants who were the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men. Genesis chapter 6, 1-4. These sons of God are often interpreted as divine beings or angels who descended to earth and intermingled with humans. The Anunnaki, as described by Sitchin, were a race of extraterrestrial beings who came to earth and genetically engineered humans. The sons of God in Genesis could be seen as the Anunnaki, while the Nephilim might represent the hybrid offspring of Anunnaki and humans. This aligns with Sitchin's theory that the Anunnaki created humans as workers, but later interbred with them, leading to a race of giants or demigods. Imagine a time when gods walked among humans, not as distant deities, but as flesh and blood beings. What if the Nephilim were not just myth, but the result of a cosmic experiment gone awry? This idea taps into our curiosity about humanity's origins and our fascination with the idea of divine intervention. The Watchers in the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text, provides a more detailed account of the sons of God mentioned in Genesis. These beings are called the Watchers, a group of angels who descended to earth and taught humanity forbidden knowledge, such as agriculture, metallurgy, and astrology. However, their actions led to corruption and chaos, prompting God to send the Great Flood to cleanse the earth. The Watchers bear a striking resemblance to the Anunnaki, particularly Enki, who is said to have taught humanity the arts of civilization. The Book of Enoch describes the Watchers as rebellious beings who overstepped their boundaries, much like Enki's defiance of Enlil's authority in Anunnaki lore. The Great Flood in both narratives serves as a reset, a divine punishment for the misuse of knowledge. What if the Watchers were not angels, but advanced beings from another world? What secrets did they share with humanity, and why were they punished for it? This connection evokes a sense of mystery and fear, as it suggests that humanity's progress came at a great cost. The Tower of Babel and the Anunnaki's fear of unity. The Tower of Babel's story in Genesis 11, 1-9, describes humanity's attempt to build a tower that would reach the heavens. God, seeing their unity and ambition, confounded their language, and scattered them across the earth to prevent them from achieving their goal. Sitchin interpreted the Tower of Babel as a rebellion against the Anunnaki. He suggested that the tower was not just a physical structure, but a symbol of humanity's desire to challenge the gods and claim their divine status. The Anunnaki, fearing that humans would become too powerful, intervened to stop them. This aligns with Enlil's role as a strict enforcer of order and his distrust of humanity's potential. What if the Tower of Babel was more than just a story about pride? What if it was humanity's first attempt to break free from the control of their creators? This idea taps into our desire for freedom and our fear of being controlled by higher powers. The Garden of Eden and Enki's role. The Garden of Eden story in Genesis 2-3, describes the creation of Adam and Eve, their temptation by the serpent, and their expulsion from paradise. The serpent is often seen as a symbol of rebellion and enlightenment. Sitchin identified the serpent in the Garden of Eden as Enki, the god of wisdom who sought to empower humanity. In this interpretation, the forbidden fruit represents knowledge and self-awareness, which Enki wanted to give to humans despite Enlil's opposition. The expulsion from Eden symbolizes humanity's transition from a state of dependence to one of independence and self-determination. What if the serpent was not a villain, but a liberator? What if the story of Eden is not about sin, but about the awakening of human consciousness? This reinterpretation challenges traditional beliefs and invites viewers to question the nature of good and evil. The Great Flood, a shared cataclysm. The Great Flood is a recurring theme in many ancient texts, including the Bible, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and Sumerian mythology. In the Bible, God sends the flood to cleanse the earth of corruption. In Sumerian mythology, the flood is sent by Enlil to punish humanity for their noise and overpopulation. Sitchin argued that the flood was a real historical event, triggered by the Anunnaki to reset humanity. Enki, however, defied Enlil by warning Ziusudra, the Sumerian Noah, and helping him build an ark to save humanity and the animals. This act of defiance highlights the tension between Enki's compassion for humanity and Enlil's desire for control. Imagine a world where the gods themselves were divided over the fate of humanity. What if the flood was not an act of divine wrath, but a calculated decision by beings who saw us as both a threat and a treasure? This connection evokes a sense of awe and fear, as it suggests that humanity's survival was a matter of cosmic debate. The Book of Ezekiel and the Anunnaki's technology. The Book of Ezekiel contains vivid descriptions of divine beings and their chariots, which are often interpreted as advanced technology. Ezekiel's vision of a wheel within a wheel, accompanied by fiery beings, has led some to speculate that he was describing extraterrestrial spacecraft. Sitchin suggested that Ezekiel's vision was an encounter with the Anunnaki and their advanced technology. The chariots could be seen as spacecraft or flying machines used by the Anunnaki to travel between Earth and Nibiru. This interpretation aligns with the idea that the Anunnaki were not gods in the traditional sense, but highly advanced beings with technology that seemed miraculous to ancient humans. What if the prophets of old were not just spiritual visionaries, but witnesses to extraterrestrial technology? What if the divine encounters described in the Bible were actually meetings with beings from another world? This idea taps into our fascination with the unknown and our desire to uncover hidden truths. The concept of divine kingship. In both Sumerian mythology and the Bible, the idea of divine kingship is central. Sumerian kings were often seen as intermediaries between the gods and humanity, chosen by the Anunnaki to rule on their behalf. Similarly, the Bible describes kings like David and Solomon as chosen by God to lead his people. Sitchin argued that the concept of divine kingship originated with the Anunnaki, who appointed hybrid rulers to govern humanity. These kings were often the offspring of Anunnaki and human unions, gifted with extraordinary abilities and wisdom. This idea is echoed in the Bible, where figures like Gilgamesh and Nimrod are described as mighty rulers with divine connections. What if the kings of old were not just mortal men, but the descendants of gods? What if their power and wisdom came from an otherworldly source? This connection evokes a sense of wonder and intrigue, as it suggests that the line between gods and humans was once much blurrier than we imagine. The stories of the Anunnaki and their parallels in ancient religious texts reveal a tantalizing possibility: that history as we know it has been rewritten, filtered, and obscured. Whether one views them as gods, extraterrestrials, or allegorical figures, their influence on human civilization remains undeniable. These ancient narratives may hold the key to answering the questions that have haunted humanity for millennia. Who are we? Where did we come from? And are we truly alone in the cosmos? The truth may be hidden in plain sight, buried in ancient texts and whispered through time. But one thing is certain: the legends of the Anunnaki endure, calling us to seek out the mysteries of our origins and the forces that shaped our destiny. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an adventure with us.